All right, we are live. All right. So, sorry, the beautiful ones that let you down. Hey, everyone. I'm Jack Mangan of Metal Asylum, Metal Hall of Fame, and the Am I Evil graphic novel project. It's been a while since we did this, and also I'm a little raspy. It's all those death metal vocals and the cold.
Understandable.
Rocking the Beatles shirt. But today, I mean, I'm truly honored. This is someone I've admired and listened to for decades, literally. Got to meet him earlier this year at the Metal Hall of Fame, but really no further introductions really is needed. Jason Bieler, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, man, thanks so much for inviting me on.
Oh, of course, man. It was a thrill. I mean, let's take a quick minute and talk about that event. I know that your rabid fans want to hear all about the albums. We're going to get to that for sure, everyone. But that was a pretty cool event, wasn't it? See you.
It was awesome to see Twisted Sister get inducted, specifically just growing up in in Long Island, and those guys being our the Long Island Led Zeppelin or Beatles of Long Island. It was a great night, and getting to be friends with a couple of the guys in the band, and it's kind of kept pinching myself as an adult, like I'm actually friends with some of these guys now. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was cool, and they put on a great performance, and there's a lot of great performances. Yeah, the Metal Hall of Fame, just every year they outdo themselves, so it was a cool thing.
How I am not inducted yet is beyond me. I won't bring that up and turn the conversation nasty, but I mean, how I am not in the Metal Hall of Fame is just it's painful.
Well, I talked to Pat Gesualdo about it a lot, and he said it would end the hall. It would just after Jason Bieler,
what else? Where else can you go, really?
Right. Yeah. Well, so let's go there a little bit. Well, actually, no, table that, because I want to talk about the comedy and all that stuff. But let's talk about the new album. That's what we're here to pimp and plug and talk about. So you did an interesting thing where you released a bunch of the songs, in the year or so. I mean, months ahead of time, and then of course the full album came out. Talk to me a little bit about your release schedule and your strategy and doing all that, where some of us knew these songs by heart, months ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think the world functions. I mean, I wanted this record to function in two ways. One, I understand that people do not necessarily have the time and the lifestyle to sit down and listen to 15 songs. It's an hour and 15 some minutes of music in one chunk. I mean, I wish everybody did, but we don't. So I wanted the record to function as both a listen where you can just listen to a track and enjoy it and digest it that way, if that's what you wanted to do. But it was really important for me, selfishly, to make a record that if you want to put headphones on, take a double vinyl out, read all the credits and the liner notes, and have that experience and hear all the stuff going on in the headphones, it was there as well. I didn't want to short that experience. So I'm respectful of the fact that some people will always only have time to listen to a couple songs. And then I'm very fortunate that a group of people that have supported me, are into the micro detail of like, why was the reverb in the left side of the headphone during that lyric, but then on the next side, it's not, and or all that kind of stuff. I wanted to have the experience. I mean, I dug as a kid, listening to The Wall, or not equating this record by any stretch to that record, but I mean, just that experience of sitting with a record and headphones and really immersing yourself in that story. So hopefully people will be able to do that too. Some people.
Yeah, cool. Well, it's too late by Jason. Now that's out on Blabbermouth. Jason Bieler compares his album to The Wall. It's
Jason says our new album better than all of Pink Floyd's catalog.
Right. Well, and actually, one more kind of jokey thing. It was nice of you to coordinate with Metallica and Overkill to release all those albums on the same day. That was a good.
I wanted to draw attention to those guys, and I figured if I put my record in the marketplace, it's going to drive so many people to the stores that it'll give those guys a shot at having some sunlight, and if I can't use this kind of Uber fame to help others, what good is it?
Well, I know, but all kidding aside, though, yeah, you do have these legions of fans. I remember Saigon Kick, back in the day. I was such a huge fan, and then I was thrilled to see this kind of these past two albums. I've really dug into them a lot. I've dived into them a lot. I don't know if you're getting that experience of people just coming up to you. Well, besides me at that event, coming up to you and saying, "Oh my God, Human Head is the best song of the last 5 years." I don't know if you get that kind of thing.
All the time, man. It's getting old, actually. I have to tell you. No, it's. I mean, I'm in a great place where I think sometimes when you're in your 20s and you achieve that kind of brass ring of getting a major label record deal, and you're so immersed in the insanity of what that could mean or could not mean, and who's doing what, where, and when, and what tour is bigger and what tour is not doing well, and how's your charting, that at this point, I'm just so glad to be making music with people I love. And the fact that it's taken on this second life, I feel like the Jamie Lee Curtis moment, like where I'm finally like, everyone's like, really being positive about, the work and kind of digging it, and I'm enjoying it. And I'm not, it's been pretty amazing. I mean, most people don't get a chance to be rediscovered. You're kind of stuck with wherever you were. And I think this, especially the being embraced, which was not an on purpose thing, but the prog community specifically, like just took me under their wing, like some kind of wayward bastard stepchild. And so it's really neat in a sense that, I have a bunch of people that are into these two records that have no idea about Saigon Kick, and then I have fans that are fans of Saigon Kick and have followed along too. So it's really cool to have this kind of, I can't say it was planned, but I'm super thankful that it's happening.
That's cool. That's very good. And I'll confess to something. Listening to the previous record, your previous 2018 album, I get, as a reviewer, I get albums, I listen to them. Sometimes I just put them on and don't. So I'm listening to them like, wow, this really sounds, there's some Saigon Kick to this. And then I looked, I was like, oh, that's because there's a reason for that. But now, can you talk to me a little bit about, you as a songwriter and a song creator, and I'm not saying, I'm not taking anything away from the contributions of the other guys, in Saigon Kick at all. But I'm saying, talk to me about where you are as a songwriter now versus then, and even talk to us a little bit about the process of how a Jason Bieler song gets written.
The process has always been relatively similar for me. I tend to hear I tend to hear things in massive chunks in my head. It's like the songs, the lyrics, the music, the melodies, like the general outline of everything comes to me at once. So the biggest thing for me is to make sure I can get it all out before I get distracted, like by a squirrel, for example. And it makes me, and I've said this before in other interviews, it makes me a horrible collaborator because, I'm hearing voices in my head and I'm trying to get them down. And, someone's like, we could put a band. I'm like, shut up, but the process always, I've been very fortunate. And always, everyone else like, walk us through it. I'm almost afraid of it because I feel like if I really analyze it, it's going to go away. Like, I don't know why it happens the way it happens. The best, way I can maybe explain it, it's like just, I have a very disturbing radio station playing in my head at all times.
Like I say, as a listener, it does sound like it's a little bit of mad science going on, just the different elements coming together.
Yeah, it's just I've always loved such a diverse types of music. I've just the Fifth Dimension, the Beatles, Miles Davis, Bjork, Tom Waits, Jane's Addiction, Beatles, Queen, all the standard stuff. Ozzy, the list just goes on and on and on and on, all the way up till today. I love Meshuggah, I love Gojira, I love, Haken, I love, there's so, Barry Manilow, Neil Sedaka, I love great music. And I think, when diversity is used as like a parlor trick, it doesn't work. It comes across kind of like, okay, great. We get it. You can play, accordion. Wonderful. But these are just really honestly, maybe musical Tourette syndrome of some sort where I just, something happens and I want to go down that rabbit hole and I try to, it's never a thing of like, wouldn't it be neat if I did this? Maybe people, it's really these explorations that I just go down and do it out of a place of that's just all mixed out. I'm like a juice tiger of my influences, they're just all in there. I think I'm just so bad at ripping people off that it sounds almost original.
Nice. Well, and just to harp on this a little bit further, I'd say that even more so than the Saigon Kick days, I'd say on your solo stuff, there's definitely a swirling of like I feel like extreme dark and extreme lightness. I think that's something I get too. Like, the dark goes really dark. Again, I'm going to reference the song Human Head about 10,000 times because I love it. Please. But that's not the only one. There are other songs where
that's
Yeah.
always been and I love rapping a really syrupy melody in a horrifying lyric. And that comes back to the point when I was a little kid. I had a step grandmother who probably drank a little too much and decided when I was 6 or 7 that the best gift would be like Edgar Allan Poe's, anthology of all of his books. And at 6, that's not necessarily warm and fuzzy material. So, as much as I would say that scarred me, I think it shaped me and my sense of, that dark, that dark passenger, to quote Dexter or whatever. It's always been there. And it's funny, like I was finishing this record, and then it comes to the point where you're assembling things, and I'm working with this great artist who does everything for me, and I had to put the lyrics together. And then I had my wife proofreading him, and he was proofreading him just to because I didn't want to have like the horrible, he really is an idiot. He can't spell or write or anything. So we're going through that. And then, my wife comes in and is like, you have some serious issues. Like, you should talk to somebody. Like, this is like, I don't even know if I feel safe with you in the house anymore. Like, it's just disturbing. And only until it was brought to my attention by my friend Robert, who's the artist, he was like, it's a really weirdly, like, it's a concept record, very loosely woven together. Like, it's almost like you are walking through an asylum and peering into each room, and each one of these is kind of a vignette of these disturbing kind of things going on and their own individual stories. And when I started to look at it that way, I was like, wow, I didn't even realize I was doing that. But yeah, it really is, and to a certain way, not literal like Tommy would be, or, like where it's a totally linear story, but there's definitely a thread in it. And I don't even like to look at it. It's disturbing. It even disturbs me.
Well, I mean, I catch that, and actually, I wouldn't have called it a concept album, but it's awesome to hear you say that. And I actually feel like, well, and by the way, the album is Postcards from the Asylum. We haven't said the name of that yet, so we're neither one of us are doing a good job pimping.
We're 2 marketing geniuses at work here, folks.
Jason Bieler, everyone. No, but yeah, but seriously, I get that also on the Apocalypse album too. I felt like there's like these songs are connected, even if they're not direct, even if it's not Pinky, calling his wife and then, doing drugs later. I felt like there's some serious connections there.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of stuff like I don't realize until way later. Like and sometimes years. Like because I don't really. I know it sounds like a strange thing to say, but I don't listen to myself. So like when the records are done, they generally sit there unless I have to remember something for some reason or learn. And so on the occasion, I do listen back to something from Songs for the Apocalypse. Like, oh wow, like I didn't really. I don't even realize I'm really like Rain Man. I mean, I don't realize what I'm doing at all. And only when it's brought to my attention, I go like, oh, that is kind of strange.
Well, cool. Well, I'm going to harp on. I got to gush about one more. Is that a song that I really enjoy from I like the first album a lot. I like many songs, but one that always strikes me is Very Fine People, because it's kind of set up. You tee it up as just this mockery of, and we won't go there unless you want to. But you see it up as this kind of pointing and laughing. But then the chorus is, we all need love. And I'm like, that's kind of beautiful. That's kind of a very empathic and human thing. And that circles back to what my previous comment. I think.
Thank you. I mean, that's, I've become more and more my life philosophy is really, just absurd and absurd. I consider myself an absurdist. I think everything's insane. I think everything I look around and see is insane. I think humanity is insane. I think politics are insane. But yeah, you were talking about the politics and all that kind of stuff. I just think the world's kind of completely insane and it's absurd. And, I'm trying to be a better person and focus on things in common with people and not on all the things that can easily divide us. All that kind of old man bullshit, happy peace world crap.
Well, yeah, and I was just saying about that song. I admire that it's got the duality on it. That's it's not just this kind of just pointing and laughing. So anyway, that's all.
Well, thank you.
But so, yeah, all right. Well, and picking up where we left off, let's talk a little bit about the Von Bielski Orchestra, because it's like a ghost thing where they're all the nameless schools, or you have an amazing array of people. You've got David Ellefson, Jeff Scott Soto. I mean, talk to me about some of the people that you've had collaborate with you.
It's been the most rewarding thing of all time to get to work with these guys, and everybody from Bumblefoot to Clint Lowry to Clay Cook from the Zac Brown Band to Butch Walker, Devin Townsend, Benji from Skindred. Marco Miniman is on the new record. Ryo Akamoto from Spock's Beard. Andy Blacksugar, who's been my kind of right-hand man throughout the whole thing. Adu Cominato is on drums on a lot of it. Ricky Sanders. Just a ton of guys that I've been so lucky to, that they said yes. I must have like some kind of weird blackmail thing on them or something like that. But it's been an unbelievably cool thing, because I think getting trapped in your own head sometimes is dangerous. And also it can make a record sound flat, like just maybe not have this kind of depth. But, when you have people like these guys we just talked about kind of weave into that tapestry, it just gives this whole more, it feels like the screen goes from like this to, to that, when the movie starts kind of, screen opening thing. And it's been just amazing. I mean, and obviously each one to a man is just unbelievably talented. So it's kind of neat.
All right. So, this could be the next 7 hours of conversation. So I want to ask about, but I'll ask about two different people you mentioned. So what was Devin Townsend's contribution on the records? I know he's another guy like you who can do everything. What did he do?
He played the solo and some guitars on Bring Out Your Dead on the first record.
Okay.
We became friends, over the years just via social media, strangely enough. And then he had made me aware that he was actually at a Saigon Kick show in Vancouver in like 1991. So we just wound up talking, and he's been super cool to me, and not only contributing to the record, which is amazing, but I've been able to call him and hey man, how is your live rig with your monitoring system? What are you doing? Like how can I set that kind of system up? And just he's been helpful on multiple levels, and just a good. I mean, as everybody knows, I think we share a kinship. Well, I'm flattered that we get lumped into this kind of thing together. I mean, I don't think we necessarily sound alike, but I think we do have the same spirit of let's go wherever the music takes us. And I just admire the shit out of him for being, that's a guy who'll have a massively successful heavy record and go, okay, now it's time to make everybody mad and do something completely different. And it's fun because, sometimes he does records that I don't think people are ready for. So records that people initially go like, you find out like a year or two later, like, wait a minute, that's like amazing. That's my favorite record. But, sometimes we're not ready as people for, Devin's music or Bowie's music or any of those great records. Sometimes you go back years later and like the stuff that I didn't get by Queen initially at that time is now my favorite stuff by Queen. So I just admire that about him in the sense of like, it's not a commercial enterprise. He is really on this ballistic, artistic, impact and move kind of thing.
All right. Well, I apologize. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit now, but do you feel like that was the case? That's always been the word I've heard about Saigon Kick. Do you feel like that was the case with Saigon Kick? Do you feel like it was the world wasn't ready for that album, for that music?
I think it was, I think we live in a better time for what I do now than we did then. I think we were a pretty diverse band. I think, and I don't say hair metal negatively. I don't know what the other term, whatever, the rock of that era. Didn't really like us at all. We weren't really with that group of people. And then, of course, we had a ballad that all of a sudden became a massive hit at the exact time grunge was becoming massive. So none of those bands could be caught dead with a band that had a ballad succeed. And bands like Alice in Chains and Pantera, and they were just able to move quicker and smarter and navigate the kind of cultural shift as to we were kind of from Florida and just we were like, tour with the Ramones? Yeah. Tour with Rat? Of course. Tour with Cheap Trick? Yep. We just wanted to make music and be around bands. So not really realizing specifically at the time you are who you're associating with, and so I think, but all in all, how much of an asshole could you be to sit here and complain about a band that ultimately had gold and platinum success and toured the world and living the dream? To sit here, there's some guy that's waking up tomorrow to work construction that's every bit as talented as anybody we're talking about, and I'm going to sit here and go like, I should have been more, I should have been bigger. I haven't had a job since I was 18. Things worked out pretty well.
Oh, cool. Yeah, and yeah, right. I didn't have. I don't. Please don't feel like I was diminishing
No,
Saigon
no,
Kick's
no, no.
achievements. Yeah, but
I just mean like I, but I
yeah,
totally understand what you're saying. I mean, I think I don't. Yes, I mean it's neat that now I'm getting all this kind of feedback from different people, whether it be Chris from Five Finger Death Punch or Corey Taylor or people just coming like, oh man, those records were cool, and you're like, oh good, someone got it.
right. Back then, we were like, I don't know about a kazoo solo. I don't know, but now we're like, yes, bring out the kazoos.
What killed us then has made us live on now.
There you go. Wise words. Well, all right, now I need to circle back. So tell us a little bit about this Jeff Scott Soto thing. Tell us a little bit
I
about
don't know what you're
the
talking
shows you
about.
guys do. Oh,
What's
is it? Or
the name?
is there a restraining order? But no, I mean, you got. I would love to. I have not. You got. I don't think you guys have come through Phoenix. I would love to catch a Soto Bieler show. Tell us. So for me and everyone else who's not been able to catch a show, tell us what this is all about.
It has been one of the great joys of my life. I mean, Jeff gave me my first professional gig ever in music when I was like 18 or 19. So I've known him since then. And, it's just chaos. Uh, it's almost harkening back to like a vaudeville kind of, insanity of like, it really is constantly, it's like watching a train just kind of tip onto two wheels and somehow like hasn't gone completely off the tracks yet, but at any moment, um, and it's just been so much fun. I mean, obviously, in my mind, he's one of the great metal and rock singers of all time, and just a great guy, and the talent speaks for itself. And to get to do these shows with him has been just so much fun because it's a lot like we just talked about. I mean, we'll do everything from Slayer to Harry Styles and Saigon Kick stuff and this and that, and we'll mash up stuff and we'll mix stuff up. It's got as much to do with, again, not equating us to that, but a Tenacious D, Flight of the Conchords, Python kind of thing as it does with anything else. Because I mean, I personally, whenever I hear another guy from our era is doing an acoustic set, I'm like, somebody shoot me. Like it's like 2 songs in, I'm like, okay, I gotta go. I mean, I can't sit here for 2 hours of pouring your heart out. So we're very conscious of that. So it is not a purist singer-songwriter event. Not disrespecting anybody who's doing that as much as it's just a nonsensical evening.
I hope you guys will come through Phoenix sometime. This is
We're
something
working on it.
I definitely want to see. Yeah, cool. All right, a couple more things on this really quick. Well, first of all, I'll tell you really quickly. It's not about me. This is about you. I got to tell you, I interviewed, or me and my buddy interviewed, Jeff Scott Soto about 2 years ago, and because of I didn't know much about him because of his past associations. I was kind of bracing myself for this snob who's going to be like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll answer your questions, peon." He was not. He blew me away with what a great, down to earth, cool guy he was. So I was like, I wanted to tell the world, like, Jeff Scott Soto is not what you think. He's really. So it's so awesome to see you guys kind of come together and do this thing. So that's a
He's
big comment.
I don't know how you can not like him. I mean, like
Yeah.
it makes me mad and violent. He's I'll beat somebody up if they say they don't like him. He's just he really is he's the real deal. I mean, he loves what he does. So whether he's playing arenas with TSO or small venues or anything in between, I mean, he's about the music. And I mean, I mean, name me 10 better singers than Jeff Scott Soto in metal history. I mean, they're just, I don't mean to be disrespectful. I'm sure I'm missing a couple that are great, but he's in that pantheon of all time great metal singers. And he probably was in that from the second he sang "I Am a Viking," not to mention all the other things he's capable of doing and has done since, but in my mind, that screaming "I Am a Viking," you could really hang your entire career on that in terms of a metal voice, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally agreed. So is there any hope for us getting a Bieler Soto album? Have you guys talked about doing some recording?
No. And I think that's the beauty of it, because what we do is an improvisational, chaotic night that really can't translate well to a record or to film because it's all read in the moment of what's happening, and we're switching things out, and songs are being pulled. Literally, we're going, no, yeah, if I do that, depending on the energy of the room, the jokes, the banter is always kind of shifting. And I don't want to change that because I just feel it's such a magical night and a fun night that I think the second we said, like, now let's make a record, we'd kill each other. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know, we've we lost a little bit of time due to internet weirdness, but I want to ask you just in general, just a question, more of a general question about the music and the scene. Where do you see heavy music kind of going in the future? And what do you think about where this is all going to go in the next 10 years or so?
Man, I think there's a ton of people out there pushing boundaries right now that, I mean, I don't know, it's weird because you have old people saying, oh, bands used to hit this critical mass and you had these giant bands. I think now we have just tons of really, really fantastic, amazingly talented people doing really cool stuff. And the world allows for that. The world's allowing for, space for me to do exactly what I want to do and how I want to do it. And I think, and people have been supportive of it. So it's I'm excited, man. I think there's brilliant drummers, brilliant musicians, brilliant singers, and some really inventive, genre bending kind of cool stuff happening now, to me, more so than ever before. I mean, I think bands are a little more fearless, and it's not all bands, but some bands, or a lot of the bands, because I don't think that whole rock star thing is coming into play like it probably once did. I think to give credit to a lot of the younger bands, I think it really, and it should always be about, because the rock star thing's an intangible. You can have that for a moment, it can go away, it can come, it can go. But being true to your art and expressing yourself and doing that kind of stuff is what I see a lot more cool band, a lot of the younger bands doing now, and I got nothing but respect.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's well said. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. But so now, do you see? I guess I'll ask about your one of your other gigs. I don't know. I personally don't know much about. Tell me a little bit about Bieler Brothers Studio. Are you still day to day active in that, or is that something that you don't have time for? Tell me a little bit about the studio and.
We had a label for a long time. We were really fortunate to work with bands like Nonpoint, Skin Dread, and Death Stars, and I can go Ankla, and I'm forgetting 100 bands we worked with. Carnival's brilliant band, Sixth from the UK. We sold the studio in South Florida. I moved everything I liked into my home, which was beautiful. And so, I mean, I haven't really signed anything new or worked in that sense. I mean, I've kind of gotten to the point where I've done enough. I've worked with a lot of bands, worked on the label side for a while, obviously worked as an artist for a long time. I just want to do what I want to do now. I'm like a stubborn toddler at this point. I just want to do whatever I want to do. I don't want to sit in a room sales pitching anybody or trying to convince anybody to do what I want to do. I just want to go in my studio, every day and do what I do. And so that's kind of where the focus has been.
All right. Well, that's awesome. I mean, that's really living the dream, right? And
absolutely.
So, I mean, that's actually a good way to circle back around. Like I said, we're looking towards the exit on this. Like I said, I don't want to type your night too much, but talk to me a little bit. Well, maybe one or two more questions about postcards, and talk to us about the production. I mean, I assume then everything was in your home studio, or did you farm any of the parts of it out anywhere?
I did everything here. I mean, it was mixed. I mean, in fairness, I mean, I've got some pretty good gear, so I'm lucky in that sense. Yeah, I did everything here, and then the musicians a lot of times will record their parts, in their studios, and we kind of worked remotely in that sense. And I think that's also been a blessing because everybody's allowed to realize their vision before presenting it. So a lot of times in a studio setting, whether it was me trying to create something or someone else trying to create something, someone can just make a weird body language move when you're trying to riff, and they're like, ugh. And then you're like, oh, the whole thing's shot. Just give me 15 minutes to work this up. So me not being there is probably, and I think they'll be the first people to say it, has been a gift to the music, because they're able to fully do exactly what they do. And that's what you want. You don't want Bumblefoot to be manipulated by me or my idea. I want Bumblefoot to do Bumblefoot. I want Andy to do Andy or Marco. Who am I to tell them how to? So let them realize their interpretation of what's going on. And that's just been a huge learning curve for me. That my absence has been very helpful in the creative process for people.
That's an odd thing to say, but I hear where you're coming from. Yeah. But still, I mean, no, I get it though, and that's pretty cool. So, all right, well, again, thank you and congratulations on the great career. And again, this I know you said recently, don't call it a comeback, but the comeback, this two albums, all this music's been really fantastic. I've really embraced it all. Can you tell us what's coming up in the future for Jason Bieler? And we talked about the scene, but what about for
Yeah,
Jason Bieler?
well,
What's coming up for you?
next week I'm getting ready to jump on the Monsters of Rock cruise with Jeff and Extreme and Tesla and Winger and Queensryche and those guys, which is always like a high school reunion.
Cool.
After that, Jeff and I have a bunch more shows we're doing, and then I'm looking to do some full band stuff. The record's really taking on a life of its own, which is I'm super thankful for. So, towards the end of the year and into next year into the festival season, hopefully we'll bring the full orchestra to a venue near you.